Video, I'm going to talk about this applet, which is designed for teaching simple and compound interest. It can be used in two separate lessons, one mainly for introducing the simple interest, and then the other one later for introducing the compound interest. So the first part will be mainly about the basic concept of interest and simple interest. You can see this rectangular bar, right, which represents the amount of money you get in the bank. And this block here is representing the amount in 1 year. So starting with the principals and the annual rate, you have the amount at the end of 1 year. And the principals and the annual rate can be adjusted in these boxes. Right? You can change to any value you want to explore later. And for this red dot here, you can change the length of time. So starting from 1 year, you can drag it down to get 2 years and 3 years, and then shows how the monies will grow. And it can also be half of a year or 1/4 of a year, okay? And you can strip in this way. And in this way, maybe the picture can help the student to realize how the interest is growing proportionally with the length of time. And depending on one hand on the annual rate, which is 10%, and then at the same time, how long altogether you put the money inside the bank. And this can be further elaborated by looking at this details calculation. So this shows that from the principal, you add 30% of the principal, then you will get this amount at the end. So if you change the length of time, okay, this will also be adjusted. Another way of showing this relation is to change it to a factor. Okay, so you can see that this result is 120% of the original principal. And so this representation will be more useful, of course. Okay, later on you can transfer it to compound interest easily. And so this is very important for a student to try to get familiar with this representation and also notice how the simple interest grows proportionally with time and the annual rate. Okay, you can also adjust this length, and in order to display more years, if you like. Okay, so for time being, we may just use it to represent about 3 years. Okay. Now, so assuming the students have some good understandings about what simple interest means and how the bank may operate in this simple model, which is also, of course, may not be really realistic, but it can be a good starting point. And then we can move on to introduce the compound interest. But instead of introducing formally what compound interest is, maybe you can try questions like this with the student. Okay, perhaps you can ask them, can we do anything in the way we save the money so that we can obtain more money from the bank, okay, under this model? That means assuming that the principals, the annual rate, and the total length of time is the same, but we can do something to get more money from the bank. Now, the student may find it quite a bit strange, okay, but it's good for them to have a guess and then to see what kind of idea they may come up with. But of course, later on, we may try to introduce gradually the ideas of compound interest through this question. Actually, we can describe it in this way, perhaps. Okay, try to imagine if we change our patterns of saving. Okay, by breaking down into 3 successive periods, and then what could be the difference in the outcomes? That means we save $10,000. And then after 1 year, we have this total, and then we'll withdraw it, right? But immediately put it back into the bank for another year. Then you will have another sum at the end, and we do the same for the 3rd year. So we can ask the student to observe this table and then to see whether they understand how the numbers are obtained in this way and why the final result is different from the simple interest. So this may open up a series of questions and investigation leading to the introductions of the compound interest, okay, in this model. And it would be good for students to figure out how these numbers are obtained, okay, in this method, in these patterns of saving. Now, once again, the details can be found here. Right? So you can click on this button to show the calculations, and it can be adjusted to draw the attention to the change in this calculations, right? Just based on the principles in each year you have. Okay, and similarly, you can also turn it into a factor, which will display another way of seeing the relations. Okay, so this is always the principal multiplied by 110%. Okay, and finally, you can also put it into one table, and this will look similar to other table displaying compound interest, okay, of 3 years. And you can still highlight how these values are calculated and how it differs, right, from one year to another. Okay, now, so suppose students have some ideas about this difference in the calculations. So we can now adjust a little bit. Go back to the original form, right? And here, at this red, in this red, for this red button, you can just change it again to obtain half years. Okay, so this shows what happened when you just put the money there for half year and you obtain the total sum. So similarly, you can also put it back into the bank again, right, until the end of the third year. Then you will have another table, and you will also notice that the sum is different. Right? So this will also lead to another set of observations and also discussions about how these values are obtained. Okay? And you may even move it up a little bit, right, to show that how it is connected to the principles in order to get the outcome each year. Okay? Or turn it into a factor. Okay? Highlight that it is always a constant factor multiplying to the principal each year. And finally, put it back into one table, right, to see how the change can be displayed gradually, right, in one table. And yeah, and this is the way that you can try. Also adjust the value. You can change it to maybe a quarter of a year, but in this way you can't display all the periods easily. Right? Maybe you can adjust the width in order to show all of them. So another way of explorations would be changing the number of years. So you can adjust this length so that you can see 5 years, okay, and then do the same. So this time it shows the sums in the 5 years. Okay, and if you go back to this value, and you can change it to other values at the beginning, and also adjust the rate perhaps, okay, and then compare the difference between the compound interest and the simple interest, right, for a certain period of time. Meanwhile, you may also use this pen for drawing or highlighting if you like during your explanations. Okay. Or zoom in and zoom out to see more details. Right. Okay. So these are some things that you can do with this applet here.